Good morning. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Budget and CIP Overview Work Session on Thursday, April 16th, 2026 at 9 a.m. If you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3 is a roll call. Ms. Williams, if you please call the roll.
Council members Nancy Campbell.
Here.
Jenny Koch.
Here.
Jim Dolan. Cameron Moses.
Here.
Michelle Lynn.
Here.
Vice Mayor David Diaz.
Here.
Mayor Kal Sheehy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then item 4 and 5 is our budget overview and our capital improvement plan overview. And we will hear those items now. So, Mr. Knutson, I don't know if you have an introduction.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council, and those in attendance. A lot of hard work, a lot of effort has gone into preparation for today. We want to make sure that we've put all thoughts into perspective in terms of projects, community needs, priorities, and available resources. And of course, it's a 5-year CIP that we're presenting here this morning. And want to ensure that we have the resources available tied to every project that we're talking about within the CIP. So we're doing our best to make sure that we're good stewards of our taxpayer dollars, that this process is as transparent as possible. So we have the city team is here for any questions that you might have about a project. Of course, as you go through the packet, there is a list of projects. There's also some sheets that describe each project. That narrative is pretty tiny in terms of the picture and explaining what that project is. So if we can answer any questions for council along the way about what is this project, why is it intended to be, what's it intended to be, and what's the benefit to the community, we're here to answer all of those questions. We talk. I'm not going to step on Ms. Olson's toes. Just a little bit, just barely. But we're going to talk about a few things, and as we go through that process, and then Mr. Foggin will be presenting some of the CIP projects that we are underway, and some of the projects that are identified for year 1 in the CIP. That's our focus. Is the year 1 of the CIP? What projects would the council like to see identified for year 1? And then obviously there's 2 through 5. Is in the CIP book itself too, but the focus today is going to be for year 1 projects, and we'll highlight some of those for you today. We went through the budget process, the budget committee, and meeting with all the department heads. I'd like to give special thanks to the budget committee, which is Joe Olson and Angie Backen. Alexis did a wonderful job. And we have Anthony assisting with that process as well, who provided lots of great insight. But a lot of those conversations were about we called it the money tree. The money tree for Havasu is something that is of consideration. We said the money tree is dying for ongoing revenues moving forward for Lake Havasu City. We're up against a few things in terms of ongoing projects. We do have the ability to take a very close look at our CIP and one-time projects. So we have funds available for one-time projects, less so for ongoing. Those are the cost in terms of maintenance or personnel or anything tied to that. Those are the bills that are paid each and every year, as opposed to a one-time project that's paid for through the CIP process. So, and then we try to project what it looks like for the future of Havasu for a 5-period duration. Right, this is a 5-year CIP. So we did our best to be very fiscally sound and fiscally conservative as we make the projections. But we don't know what's out there and what the future for tourism looks like for the state, for Havasu, for the country. So we're taking a very conservative approach with our projections, but we need to be cognizant that the economy for Havasu is tourism, and that's what we rely on as a city to operate, whether that's police, fire, public works, or all throughout all of our departments. We rely heavily on tourism to pay the bills. We'll have some conversations a little bit today about water and wastewater funds. Right now, we have programmed slight increases in water and wastewater that we've implemented over the last couple of years. We'll have there's one more programmed, and in terms of a small increase that's coming up in September of this year. We'll have to take a look at what it means for the future of years 3, 4, and 5 in the CIP. Right now, we have projects identified that exceed the dollars that are available in that fund, even after we go through a process of cutting back projects that are needed. But we're not going to make those decisions today, but I need the council and the public to understand that we rely heavily on the rates to match up with the projects and our ability to provide water service and wastewater services throughout the community. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Olson, and she'll start the process start the presentation, talking about our budget overview and our finances, and we'll lead into the capital projects. Yeah, thank you, Jill.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Let's see if we could get this done. Ta-da. So again, I would also like to thank the budget team, in particular, Angie and Lexi. They're the ones who take all of the variety and the pieces of information and actually put it into something that we can all understand and see.
Ms. Olson, could you possibly bring the mic a little bit closer to you?
Yeah. I don't know how close I need to get. I might have to switch microphones. Is that loud enough? Okay, I'll try to keep doing that. And then I do want to also thank all the departments for their contributions to the budget process. This whole thing is truly a team effort, and it's greatly appreciated. So for today, again, as Mr. Knudsen alluded to, we will go over the budget process just a bit here at the beginning, just as a reminder that the CIP starts in September. We have operating budgets that begin compilation in December. The council planning session occurs by the end of January. Then in March, we review all of the departments' line item budgets with those departments. And then a reminder that we are required to adopt an annual budget per state code, state statute, and municipal code. The budget materials that you have today basically is the CIP budget book. It'll show the projects and the funding sources, and then it also has the detailed project sheets. The operating budget book you will receive in May as well. So the operating budget you will receive in May with all of the materials that shows the numbers associated with the assumptions that we'll review today, as well as the 5-year financials and the more details on the departmental budgets again. The adoption of the tentative budget is going to occur in June, hopefully, the first meeting in June. You'll be presented the final budget for adoption at the end of June, at the June 23rd meeting. And then the property tax rate is the final step in the process where we adopt the property tax rates. So we're going to start by talking about this fiscal year that we're currently in. How is it going and how are we doing? This first chart is just to show budget to actual comparisons, and these are in millions of dollars. This reflects the budget and what's being estimated for the current fiscal year. So for general fund, you'll read across the top. So general fund, it starts with budgeted revenues compared to estimated actual revenues. Budgeted grants in the general fund were greater than the actual grants we're anticipated to receive. So that's why that's the biggest difference between those two numbers. But all other revenues combined came out fairly close to budget. Budgeted expenditures are low, reflecting a lot of the vacancy savings, primarily the vacancy savings, less any grant expenditures that we're not incurring because we didn't receive the grant revenue. And then also the difference is often that we're not able to complete a project or receive a piece of equipment by June 30, and so that goes into a carry forward, and it'll show up in the FY27 budget. And a reminder that a carry forward is an amount of dollars that will not be spent this year, because in order for us to book it to this year, the item has to be received or the service has to be provided by June 30, no matter when it's billed. So if they're not going to be completed by June 30, we carry those funds forward into the next fiscal year so that we have the budget allocation and the funding there to pay for the project or the item. You also see the highway user revenue fund and the street fund. That's combined on this. Budgeted revenues and expenditures are fairly close. There are some carry forwards, especially associated with the expenditures, budgeted expenditures compared to the actual. The bridge project is primarily the biggest thing that's being carried forward. That's a big difference in those two numbers. And then in the flood control fund for drainage, there is a drainage project that's going to be carried forward. So that's a bit of the difference between the expenditures on that one. For enterprise funds, we have 4 enterprise funds that you'll see listed there. Anytime you see an expense total over a revenue total, that's generally due to those carry forward projects we mentioned not being completed. In water, we did receive more grant funding than anticipated, and a little bit of revenue from the PFAS, the water substances, the chemical effect to the environment. I'm sure you all know more about PFAS than I do. That's included in there, about $1.3 million as well. So those are the major differences between budget and actual. Okay, Plan C. Yay. So the next one is talking about available resources. And when we say available resources, that's also sometimes referred to interchangeably to fund balance or retained earnings. So they're different depending on the type of fund, but we'll just use the terminology to be consistent and hopefully less confusing. So this table shows the staff estimates for revenues and expenditures for the current year and those effects on the fund balance. So you'll see on the general fund, you'll see available resources. We start with what we had at the beginning of this fiscal year, the total revenue we estimate to receive, the number of expenditures that we anticipate, any transfers in and out, that would be the net. In the general fund, that's a larger amount. And then that you add the revenue and either add or subtract the transfers and subtract the expenditures, and you get what we think will be the estimated fund balance or resources at the end of this fiscal year. For water and wastewater funds, the cause of the decreasing available resources is due primarily to using available resources for one-time expenditures. So as you know, we've been able to use some of our one-time fund balance accumulations to try and catch up a little bit, at least, on some of the deferred maintenance issues that we've encountered. And then just as a note on there, the budget stabilization reserve is excluded from these numbers. So this is available resources in addition to any budget stabilization reserve. So just a quick overview of the vehicle license tax. This shows, we went back to FY23 and showed 5 years worth of numbers to show the first line is, that's the total vehicle license tax that we receive on an annual basis. The next line down there is a dedicated 20% that automatically is transferred. 20% of the VLT is transferred to the street fund as enhanced revenue available for street projects. And then the third line is additional general fund transfer to streets. So you'll see in the past, we've had several transfers, about $20 million worth of transfers. We don't show transfers additional over above the 1 million for FY27, just because we've received more transfers than we haven't been able to spend that money as fast as we thought we could, just because of the time it takes to do this and conduct those street projects. So that money keeps getting carried over. So there will still be a lot of street projects. This is just the revenue side. So the projects that are being funded by these amounts, when you see nothing in FY27, that's not a reflection of the projects being done. That's just a reflection of the additional general fund revenue not being transferred. This is just a graph to show what we just talked about on the previous page for anyone who might appreciate just a more visual look. You'll see that the blue bar is the amount of transfers from the general fund in each of those fiscal years. And then the gold bar is the total VLT received in each of those years as well for comparison. So we'll now take a look at some of the assumptions that we took into consideration as we estimated for FY27, and the results of that you'll see at the May budget workshop. We'll start by looking at revenues. We're getting down to the wire, but we're still reviewing projections for revenues and expenditures just to make sure that we have captured anything material or substantial that might change between now and the May meeting. Revenue adjustments, particularly in sales tax, are being factored in as we receive that additional information. So we look very closely at that. As Mr. Knutson said, we rely heavily on sales tax for city operations in the general fund. So we monitor that probably more closely than other revenues. And also we have about a 2-month lag in the time that the sales tax gets collected and then paid and remitted to the city. So we have to take that in mind too. We're projecting, you might think we have the March 31st numbers, but we really don't. So there's about a 2-month lag where we have to estimate an additional 2 months where the funds could be with the state and we just aren't aware of what those numbers are yet. And just as a note, the projections for the revenues have been adjusted in order to reflect the most accurate projections based upon the actual activity for this fiscal year. So when we project FY27, we start with our base of FY26 estimates so that we have the most accurate information on which to base those projections. Also looking at trends, but we start with that base of the FY26 estimate. So just a quick overview on some of the assumptions made related to projecting the revenues. For property tax in particular, the revenue estimates include no increases to tax rates. We're proposing, or the numbers reflect that the rate would be held flat. We leave it at that amount, and leaving it flat with an increase in assessed valuation would actually increase the revenue or the levy amount by about $442,000, $124,000 of which is new construction. For water and wastewater, the utility rate study results implemented in 2023. We're monitoring those very closely. With the current CIP estimates for water and wastewater, additional revenues above the current rates will be needed to support the planned projects. There have been substantial increases in costs that were not known or anticipated when the rate study was done, so we are seeing that in the numbers. A rate review, as we talked about at the planning session at the end of January, is set to occur again in fiscal year 28. The last increase that you have already approved will be in effect 9/1 of 2027. So we will be looking in FY28, we'll be looking closely at updating all of those numbers to see how those rates might need to change to accommodate and meet the needs of those two systems. So current projections show that for the water fund, in those last 3 years, for which we don't have approved rates yet, we're estimating about an 8.5% increase in revenues that's needed in order to cover the water fund plan projects. For the sewer fund or wastewater fund, that's about a 4.5 to 5% revenue increase that is needed, that would need to be reflected in the rates, or projects would just need to be reduced or cut back at that time. For the improvement district number 2 for the London Bridge Plaza, right now we're proposing that the rate be held flat. We have not received any information that there would be additional costs. The district is about breaking even, and they do have a fund balance at the beginning of this fiscal year of about $15,000. So should revenues be slightly under the expenses for this next year, the fund balance should be able to accommodate that within the $15,000 change at least. The association has been very great to work with as far as keeping them up to date on what those expenses are, and they were able to reduce some of those expenditures for about a 4-month period. We've had lower utilities, and there was a slight reduction in building and grounds maintenance services just to make sure we stayed within budget for this year. On the expenditure side, now that we've taken a look at what we think the funds will be as far as available for using in provision of services, we then look to our existing service levels and any directives by council to determine our expenditure side. We'll walk through some of the variations and some of the assumptions regarding those estimates, and then again in May you'll get more detail on that. So for now, the budget projected expenditures for personnel costs, there are wage and step adjustments for the employees on their classification date only. There is no additional increase in wages included. As we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, as Mr. Knutson mentioned, we had very little available ongoing revenue to apply to new expenditures for next fiscal year. Very little. So there's really no funding available, ongoing funding available for any additional wage increases over and above what they are, other than providing people their step increases for those on step, an equivalent increase for those on the open range system. We've also included the changes to the retirement rates. ASRS is going down slightly, very slightly, 12% to 11.98%. PSPRS fire is increasing approximately 2.6%, and the police PSPRS is increasing approximately 6%. So that was a larger number than usual on the retirement rates side. We are also estimating a health insurance rate increase of about 10.3% on average, and that has been included in our initial projections. And then any increases that we've been identifying in operating expenses have been included. Any items such as fuel and utilities and supplies, those have been included. We have also included salary savings. We do experience salary savings each year, so we do budget for that so that we're not over budgeting and just saving money that doesn't need to be saved. Now, often salary attrition will sometimes, those vacancies can cause additional overtime in certain departments. And so those salary savings first go to covering the excess overtime that wasn't budgeted initially. And so then anything over that in savings does get budgeted. Supplemental items. We had, during the budget process, we ask the departments after we give them their base number of their operating budgets, and that base is for most part the current fiscal year, and we take out any one-time expenditures, anything that's not normal O&M that's ongoing annually from year to year. We take that out, and that's their base. Anything that they want to request over and above that base amount is submitted through as a supplemental request. The departments were very conscientious in submitting their supplemental requests. We had, for all funds, about a little over $19 million in supplemental requests submitted. 12.8, almost 13 million of that just in the general fund. Most of those were for one-time expenditures. Tentatively, when we're looking at what's available, we're looking at being able to possibly approve about 7.7 million in the general fund and then smaller amounts in the other funds. The items that have been approved are mostly needed. They're mostly in the needs category, not the wants category. We had several common themes throughout the requests. Everything that we've been talking about before, especially related to deferred maintenance. We now have roof repairs, roof replacements that need to occur, replacements and repairs of HVAC systems, generator replacements. We have generators that are beyond their useful lives as well. And so we took all of that into consideration in what we're proposing to include and use primarily one-time monies for. And we did include another $1 million in the general fund for contingency purposes and contingency in the other funds as well. So to wrap up, again, kind of the key takeaways, what we're proposing for FY 26-27 will be a balanced budget. We will point out anything in the future years that perhaps are out of balance due to not having available revenues, mostly in the water and wastewater. And that will be highlighted when we go through the CIP. We, again, are proposing a flat property tax rate. Yes, we know that generates additional tax levy or revenue, but the rate is staying the same. We tried to strategically use fund balance in a thoughtful way in determining what we might approve for next fiscal year. And then it also reflects our goal to invest in services and infrastructure to the greatest extent possible. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Thank you for that budget overview. Are there questions from members of the council on the budget overview portion? And again, today's the first of 2 work sessions, so this is more focused today on the capital improvement plan, and the next work session will be on the operating budget. Okay, Councilmember Moses?
Yeah, just real quick. So our budgeted for the general fund for revenues, one of the most important things to a budget is obviously knowing how much you're going to be, how much revenue you're going to have. We're about 6% off from budget to actual. Do you know where that difference came from? Was it?
That's largely grants.
Okay. So we were expecting to get grants that we did not get?
Correct.
Okay. So.
And we do put additional money in for grants because due to the way the state law reads, if we don't have it in our budget allocation, even if we get it, we can't spend it. So we put in a little extra in case we get additional grants.
Okay.
So
and so that's not concerning. That's
No.
that's okay. I just want to make sure we're projecting sales tax at an accurate rate and all of those things, that our crystal ball is as crystal as we can get it.
correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Councilmember Rhoda Campbell?
Mayor, thank you. I have a question on the refuse. Is that it? Yeah. Refuse. I see that we make about an additional $1 million more with refuse. It's not a lot, but there's got to be an outstanding balance that has got to have accumulated. What is our plans for that?
That'll be discussed more in detail when we give you the financial projections at the May work session. But when we took a look at it for the council planning session, we did mention that there is some fund balance available for additional cleanup days, for anything that we might want to put away toward future landfill. So you have flexibility to use those funds in that manner.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And one other question. I love that you categorize the street fund and the HERF fund, help to verify the VLT, what it looks like. And again, I don't see let's go to where it says vehicle street, it says HERF. So even in your, it shows vehicle license tax, but I don't see HERF funding. It says transfer from general fund to HERF. Well, there was already should have HERF dollars in there as well. We've talked about 5 million or something that we get as income.
That's correct.
And so on that general fund, I know we had an outstanding balance on HERF prior years ago, like a balance like wastewater does, like general fund has, a savings account, whatever you want to call it. Where on there is that being depleted out? I don't see
That has not been presented yet. That will be in the financial projections for that fund that we bring to you at the May work session.
Okay.
This was just to primarily focus on just the vehicle license tax and the additional contributions by the general fund to the streets program.
Okay. And so that is what you're saying is went directly from the general fund, or were we depleting? Do you think our HERF beginning balance is about the same as it was a few years ago? Or did we deplete that down? Or did we actually take money from the general fund and put it over? And if we can wait, if it's better, but I do appreciate being able to see the difference.
Angie indicates she recalls that the fund balance is probably a little bit higher than it was a few years ago. But for the most part, the amount of HERF that we receive goes all to operating expenditures.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. But
Yeah.
we have a balance, but we're not depleting that balance. We're just leaving that there and transferring money from the general fund is what you're saying into HERF.
Well, we're using it for kind of the annual street maintenance program.
Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Campbell. So the HERF fund, the dollars that we receive from the state for HERF, highway user revenue funds, gas tax, registration fees are all collected by the state, and then we get a portion that comes back to Havasu. Right now, Angie, that's about $5 million a year. 6.7. So 5 million was what it was just a couple of years ago. So you're seeing an increase in the level of dollars that the city receives. $6.7 million we receive in HERF. Those funds are utilized for the most part for personnel, operating vehicles, crack seal, chip seal, all the things we've done in the past. If the city and if the city council wants to do the projects we're doing like Jamaica, ACOMA was approved at the last council meeting. The downtown street improvements that are taking place, the application of HA5 or our preventive maintenance, those are all projects that are all of which, or a significant portion, comes from a general fund injection into the HERF fund. So we're utilizing all the HERF dollars, but we need more to do what the mayor and the council directed the staff to do. So then we're pulling in a lot more dollars from the general fund. The savings in the general fund. So large part what we do is we adopt a budget, and then there's X amount of dollars that are projected to be spent by the city. And then because we have such a wonderful budget team, and because we have such wonderful department directors, we realize savings within that budget year. We take the savings from last year and we identify that as unencumbered general fund dollars. Those are dollars that we saved because we didn't spend. And then we use those dollars for like these road projects and some of these other one-time capital projects that we're going over today. So HERF dollars are not enough to do the things we want to do for streets and Havasu. So there's got to be that injection. So if you're talking about the fund balance of HERF, we're spending all of that and we need more. So
I was just saying their beginning balance, they said it was stable. And on the VLT, we are taking a majority. We're only giving we're taking 80% and putting it in the general fund. And then in a roundabout way, we're giving it back for roads. So, okay, I appreciate them all separated out instead of just lumped together. It just makes better sense to me. So I appreciate that, and great presentation.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Diaz, did you have a question? If you turn on your microphone, please. Yeah, thank you.
Doing what Jill is doing. Yeah. The available resources, Jill July 1st, 2025, it says 17.8 million for the highway user revenue funds and street funds. And then it says estimated revenue 7.5. Can you just explain the difference of that? I mean, that's a $10.3 million difference. So I'm just trying to get my head around the resources it says that are available, and then the estimated revenue, and then estimated expenditures. So a lot of numbers there. Can you explain what that difference is?
The first number is the fund balance starting at the year, and this will kind of tie in with what Councilmember Campbell was talking about. Then we add the estimated revenue for all street funds. Mm-hmm. And then we subtract the estimated expenditures primarily for this year. A lot of that is the bridge, second bridge. And then we reflect transfers in. That 8.4 million is the money that's being transferred into the street fund. And then the amount left by June 30 is about 16 million. What you will see when we bring the numbers in May as well, to kind of follow up on the other same related question, as we look at the financial projections, we always look at a 5-year period. Yes, we've got 16 million right now, but we try to smooth out the road projects, those expenditures, so that by the time we get to year 5 of that, there's probably less than $1 million left in fund balance if we're able to do all of those road projects. So at the end of year 5, yeah, it looks like we have a ton right now, but with the planned projects in the CIP, we'll be down to less than $1 million at the end of year 5.
Okay. All right, and then on the budget overview, projected revenues, I don't know, there's not the pages aren't marked, but it says we're going to be insufficient funds for water projects, so we might have to raise the rate quite a bit. How much is that going to be later on in the presentation? How much we talked about it? We're going to have insufficient funds for the projected water infrastructure.
For wastewater, we're anticipating for years 3, 4, and 5 that we would need to increase revenues by about 4.5%, 4.5% to 5%. Now, what that means for each rate within the structure, that could be different. So that an increase in the revenue is not an exact, 4.5% increase in revenue doesn't equate to a 4.5% increase in each rate tier and within the structure. For water, it's more like 8.5% for each of those 3 years. 8.5% increase in revenue.
Okay, I get that. Thank you. Budget overview, projected expenditures. Just a quick question. It says changes to the retirement rates. Is that the increase? Is that being caused by retirement pension liabilities? Is that the main reason for those increases?
It's a result of PSPRS doing their actuarial studies and estimating what is going to be needed for the retirements upcoming, and they adjust our rates as a whole. So that's what that reflects.
Right. And then just a statement. So in the private sector, sometimes we have to do less with more. We have to do more with less, I should say. So I'd like to find out in the last 5 years how many positions we've added to the city staff and how much that has cost us in salaries. I think that's the big number we should know as a council, because I'd just like to know what that number is.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, if I can.
Yeah.
Two things, and working in reverse order. When it comes to the positions, I think one of the things that we part of that analysis is that we've taken a number of part-time positions, and at the same level in terms of cost, or close to it, we'll take like three part-time positions, do away with those 3 part-time positions to create 1 full-time position. So we've done that a lot in Public Works. We've done a lot of that in Parks and other departments as well too. So so the funding and the dollars are the same, but we have a better success rate when it comes to retaining that employee for a longer period of time. It's harder to retain a part-time employee than it is a full-time employee. So we'll put all that in perspective as well too. We get questions each and every year when we start talking about pensions and the PSPRS, which is the Public Safety Retirement Fund, and then the ASRS, which is the Arizona Retirement System. And those are 2 separate entities than the city. We have no determination of what that looks like. These are statewide retirement systems. They run their numbers, they calculate their numbers, and they come back and tell us each and every year that you're going to see an increase to those rates of X percent. And we don't know what that increase is going to be until we get that email each and every spring. So just kind of want to put that out there. That's not the city programming that. There's a few things that are out of our control. That's one of them. Health insurance rate increase, about 10%. That's out of our control. That is, we do our best to try to minimize that number the best we can. But that is our NAEBT Healthcare Trust. That includes the school district here in Havasu, like Havasu City, Kingman, and Bullhead. And based on that pool, we've seen some high cases that have come in. So there's some high dollars that are there. I just want to kind of put that out. We talk about that each and every year in terms of what that is. That's not us setting those rates. That's us being told what those rates are.
Then just one last question, going back in time. When it goes to HERF and the VLT funds, is there state statutes that we have to use a certain amount of that money for roads and repairs, or is it just we can do whatever we want with it?
When it comes to HERF funds that we get it has to be used for roads or anything in the right of way. Has to be used, HERF funds. If we take general fund dollars, unencumbered general fund dollars, and add that to that fund, that's a little bit different, some flexibility there. But here in Havasu, we follow essentially that same rule.
Can I ask a clarification?
Councilmember Moses?
Follow-up. So are you saying that there's nothing we can do, like zero that we can do to affect the rates of PSPRS and ASRS?
That's correct.
It's all given to us.
We're kind of familiar a little bit with like the Social Security system and what that looks like, and the feds come down and look at increases and for those that are receiving the checks and so forth. It's all based on a calculation of the dollars that are available, people that for the retirement systems, those that are retiring, the number of people coming into the system. They are calculating what it's going to take to pay checks for those that are retired in the system, and what's the contribution of the existing employees and the existing employers in order to make that happen. Each and every year, there's a calculation, and they tell us what that number is based on that calculation.
Thank you.
Right. Are there any other questions on the budget overview? All right, so we'll move on to the next section, which is our capital improvement plan overview.
Mayor, council, good morning. This is fun. Budgeting is fun. Don't throw anything, Angie. So if you'll indulge me, I want to just share, it's been stated several times about how much work goes into budgeting, and a big portion of is the capital improvement budget, mostly because we're trying to be as accurate as we can over not a 1 or 2 year period, but over a 5-year period. And just the countless number of hours from all the departments that are looking at capital projects, Angie, Lexi, Jill, and the finance team. But if I could help you understand kind of what the budget process is in the city, I would refer to a movie that probably most of you have seen, and A Nightmare Before Christmas. And picture the mayor of Halloween Town standing at the door of Jack Skellington, knocking on the door, wanting to talk about next year's Halloween. And the mayor makes a statement and says, "Jack, where are you? We only have 365 days to plan for the next Halloween." And there's, of course, some citizens on the street that yell up at the mayor and say, "That's 364. And of course, the mayor goes into panic mode. Now, if you want to look at that in real life, picture Angie standing at the door of Public Works building, knocking to try to get in, yelling, "There's only 365 days till the next budget presentation." And, when a Public Works employee going by saying, "It's only 364. So Angie and Jill and the team, just countless hours. I want to thank my team. A lot of work goes into what you're going to see here. Like I said, planning for year one, a little bit easier because you can see what needs to happen. It's really when you get out into years 3, 4, and 5, where the challenge occurs. So it's my pleasure today to walk you through the 5-year capital projects. As Jess indicated, I'm going to give a little bit of time to where we are this fiscal year with projects. But just as a reminder, the capital improvement plan, just for those of you that aren't familiar with this process, it's defined as it outlines the projects the city needs to build, repair, expand, or maintain in order to serve the community. It is developed as a 5-year plan, updated annually, includes anticipated funding sources. So as been indicated, all of the numbers that you see on the expenditure side, revenue side is being calculated at the same time. What I have to present to you is, as I mentioned, this year, the fiscal year 25-26, which takes us to June 30th. And then, as Jess indicated, I'm going to talk about the fiscal year 26-27 and then show you what the total 5-year plan looks like for 27 through 31. Everybody should have received a book, very well done. It's got the layout of how each fund looks for projects through that 5-year period, as well as description of what the project is in more detail. I guess I should go through slides. With 2025-26, we were in the final quarter of the fiscal year. We have, and I covered Tuesday night, quite a few projects that are, I think the number is roughly 40 in some kind of process, whether it's design or whether it's just getting ready to be built. Some of the near completed projects that I wanted to point out, there are 3 projects that are just completed at the airport: the runway lights, the runway end lights, and the signage. Very important to the safety of our airport. That is done. Our Kiowa Drain 3, very important project, is complete. I think they're actually just finishing up the punch list items for that. Main Street Commons, again, that project is anticipated to be complete by June 30th. Our city fuel facility, I think this week we will have finished up the punch list items on the fuel facility, and that should be ready to go here in a month or so based on the technology tied to that. The courthouse covered parking, if you pulled in, that project's complete, very nicely done. Site 6 fishing dock, big thanks to Buster Johnson, Supervisor Johnson, who helped fund that. That is complete and being used actively. PD parking lot, their rear parking area was in just terrible disarray and unrepaired. That project turned out fantastic. Reference has been made to Jamaica Boulevard, a great paving project that we're happy turned out amazing. The South Intake Influent Screen project is just finalizing. The Mulberry Treatment Plant roof replacement, another just take care of your stuff projects. Nothing really exciting about it, but roof, you're going to see a number of roof projects in the next 5 years that just cannot be ignored. Our 2025 water main replacement, council Tuesday night gave us a change order to continue that project. That will be wrapped up by end of fiscal year. And then the new lab building, we're super excited about. That's vertical, and we're expecting it to be close to being complete, but you'll actually see that there's, as Jill mentioned in her presentation, some anticipated carryover just in case we don't have it 100% buttoned up. So those are the active projects. Really, we're proud how these are turning out, and think they're a huge benefit to the community and to the departments that they're being done for. So for the next section, I'm going to turn the time over to Jill to cover her stuff.
So just quickly, some of this we've already discussed to a certain extent. The total 5-year CIP totals $197 million worth of projects. It is balanced and fully funded with the caveat that that assumes some kind of a rate increase in years 3, 4, and 5 for water and wastewater. So again, staff is recommending no issuance of debt related to anything in the 5-year CIP, and so of course not for FY27. Again, we have dedicated the amount that we generate for construction's sales tax. That amount gets transferred from the general fund over into the capital projects fund to cover general government projects, those normally funded with general funds. So that averages, it's about $2.5 million each year right now. Sometimes that number will fluctuate a little if we're trying to smooth out the 5 years, but overall, it's about a $2.5 million revenue amount. And once again, we are proposing that 20% of the general fund's vehicle license tax, about $1 million, be a dedicated funding stream for street projects in the CIP. And then we already talked about the utility rate increase that's going to be required. If we don't increase the rates in some manner to generate sufficient revenue to cover all of the expenditures, then we are going to have to remove projects from the water and wastewater CIP or push them out into the future. This is a breakdown of the 5-year CIP by the type of city service. So this is just to give you a visual of how the funds are spent within the CIP. Nearly half of the CIP is used, that's about 41% for water and wastewater improvements. Drainage projects are improvements to our washes and drains, and that's funded by our portion of the flood control district dollars, and that's right now about $3.4 million a year. This is a breakdown of the 5-year CIP by funding source. ADOT grant funding is included in the grants line, which reflects the funds from the second bridge received from the state through the legislature. And the various grant funding sources are found on the last page of the CIP summary. You'll see those listed. And now I will turn it back over to Ron to look at the proposed 5-year CIP.
All right, thank you, Jill. So for the fiscal year 26-27, the next section will cover capital projects that we anticipate taking on for the next fiscal year. Again, I want to point out that you're going to see some totals in and projects in this list that you've seen in fiscal year 26, and these are carryovers that, you know, just in case, or we just know that they're going to carry through to the next fiscal year. Of course, we've got a budget for those to make sure that we can complete them. So the first section of this spreadsheet that you're looking at is what we're continuing to plan for the airport. Some really important projects being covered at the airport. And what you will notice on, definitely want to point out for airport capital projects, is that most of these projects are grant funded. These are FAA and ADOT assisted projects. So in order to keep our travel services at the airport where they should be, we rely heavily on FAA and ADOT to help us maintain those. So the runway rehabilitation safety area, this is a phased project. Cities been able to make improvements. So basically the property that's between taxiways and the actual runway have been made, they're really just dirt. That doesn't play well with airplane engines. So we've had ongoing project to fill that in with rock and protect the aircraft. So really important. The other thing that I will say on this, and I mentioned it Tuesday night as well, is our effort to develop hangars at the airport. One of the things that we're constantly hearing is not enough hangar space, and we hear that. The other projects at the airport are really just making sure the pavement areas are up to snuff and are travel safe for aircraft. The next couple of items on the list are WASH projects. These are part of the 2025 WASH management plan projects the council approved. And so we're going to be able to tackle 3 in the upcoming year. And then the fourth one on there is the DMA 8 storm improvement project. That actually is associated with the second bridge and improvements to the stormwater movement in the second bridge area. So really good stormwater projects. The next few are the park projects. I will say that the channel restrooms, that is a carry forward number. We're shooting to have those complete by end of fiscal year, but just in case something gets delayed on that, we want to make sure that we can finish those. I will say that Rotary Park splash pad is something that has been discussed. That's an effort to try to get grant money to do that project. And then the Rotary Park ADA accessibility, that's a carryover. It's currently being worked on now and anticipated completion in 27. Our much needed phase 2 of our police department facility and jail rehab. This first phase partially funded by federal funds. This much needed second phase is tackling roof issues and trying to take the police facility and update as much inside as we possibly can with that. That's actually, the design is complete, and we're now going out for bid for that project, and we'll tackle that in fiscal year 27. And then fire station number 7, as I mentioned Tuesday night, that is 100% plans complete, submitted to the city for plan review, and we're expecting to break ground on fire station 7 in June. But of course that'll be a carryover since we'll just be getting started on the construction side of that. So there's a couple of small PD projects. I will say that one of the things that is challenging for all of our emergency services is expensive equipment and trying to get it out of the sun. And so the public safety equipment storage is a pretty important project to try to get equipment out of the sun and stored in a way that they're preserved and the useful life of those pieces of equipment are extended. My favorite project, Second Bridge, obviously we're expecting to break ground in fiscal year 27. As Jason pointed out in his presentation Tuesday night, 18 to 24 months for completion. So you'll see that as a carryover for fiscal year 28. And then we move into our street paving. Council was kind enough to approve the Acoma project. That's the full repavement of Acoma from 95 north to 95 south. And we split that across 2 years. It actually worked out really nice to split it across 2 years. We felt there would be some cost savings, and there absolutely was. So really happy to be able to continue to do street repaving, really important to our street system. So the next, and we're also going to do a small Lake Havasu Avenue project. The PCI scores lower than what it should be for such a heavily traveled area. So we're going to tackle a little portion of Lake Havasu Avenue from Willow to Mesquite. And then the next projects are really our water and wastewater projects. And what I would say about water and wastewater projects are really, it's an effort to make sure that our systems are as strong and resilient as they possibly can be, trying to make sure that we are not kicking the can down the road and waiting for failure to happen, trying to stay on top of this as much as possible so that we're supplying the best possible drinking water at all times, and we're making sure that the wastewater side of it goes away and is handled according to the rules and regulations associated with wastewater. So what I'll point out is we have a large amount of work that we're proposing to do on the north end of the city for wastewater. We refer to it as the North End Wastewater System Expansion and Improvement. One of the things that happened with the North End development of our wastewater was the North End developed, and what we end up doing is pumping through force mains. We would pump wastewater from the north to the south to basically a lift station, and then that lift station would then take wastewater and pump it to the north again. And so so you're going to see a number of projects starting. We actually started these projects in 26, but you're going to see them throughout the 5-year CIP for the next 5 years. Really important projects that will upgrade lift stations. It's changing the direction of force mains. It's actually allowing us to add what we love in wastewater, which is gravity-fed sewer. That's what we always want to try to get away from any force mains or lift stations. Let gravity do the work, and it generally doesn't cost you anything like power, which is pretty expensive these days. Anyway, that's what you're going to see with the North End wastewater system expansion and the associated projects with that. The new lab building, we have a little bit of carryover. We actually expect that building to be constructed and complete by June 30th. But whatever may be left over, we want to make sure we have enough budget to cover that. We also started a 3-phase project this current year with our UV disinfection replacement at our plants. We did Mulberry. Just getting ready to actually install the equipment that we've been waiting for that. For fiscal year 27, we're going to tackle the Island treatment plant, and then the final one will be our North Regional plant, where we'll have all brand new UV disinfection replaced. And that's a fantastic piece that we need to continue to deliver our Class A affluent water that the community continues to expect out of the back end of our wastewater plants. I would just say that for the second bridge, we continue to have really important utility. I know we talked a little bit about the force main on Tuesday, but I just want to point out the importance of being able to put our culinary water, our drinking water line through the new bridge, raw water that's produced by wells on the island, and then also the effluent, being able to move our wastewater effluent back and forth between the plants. I cannot tell you how fortunate this community is, and what the great planning went into to be able to tie all three of your wastewater plants together. Just being able to handle the wastewater in a way that we don't have to worry about spillage, or we've reduced chance of spillage by a great amount because these systems are tied together. But it's a great opportunity to be able to capture those lines, build new ones, and put them in the new bridge. So pretty excited about that. As far as water, we've got a whole bunch of water projects that we need to tackle. You'll see a lot of our of tank references in here, whether they're new tanks or rehabs. Really, our system depends on our ability to be able to store water up above and deliver it with gravity feed down. That provides a redundancy that was second to none. It gives us a little bit of storage in an emergency situation, but really it's a matter of being able to maintain fire flows and to be able to provide consistent pressure to the entire system. So you'll see a number of tank projects and booster references. That's really to get the water up the hill. Let me, I'm not flipping my pages to the proper. All right. So again, one of the things that I want to point out is we've had a really concerted effort to replace mainline for our water. For the last 2 years, we've had $5 million each year to do mainline replacement. The one that we're currently working on, Acoma, but mainline replacement, being able to, I think we've replaced over the last couple of years over 4 miles of mainline. That really strengthens our system, protects infrastructure, and makes sure that we're delivering water without interruption to homes. So we're going to continue that. I also want to point out that the importance of our advanced metering infrastructure install. We started that in-house. We're going to continue to do it in-house. A huge amount of cost savings on it. We can dedicate the money to buying the meters, and then with the team installing it, we were able to do in about 13 months 20% of the system. So really proud of the water department for all they're doing. We actually carry the advanced meter infrastructure replacement over the full 5 years. You'll see that in a later slide. And so I think that is the fiscal year 26-27 CIP projects. Good list. I often get asked, there's a lot of projects, can you get them all done? The answer is we can get them done. What really slows us down is when we order parts, and it's the supply chain is what actually slows us down, and what's been slowing us down for the last couple of years. We have contractors, very competent contractors in all the areas that you're seeing on the CIP that are stepping up and bidding on the project. We're not running into what we saw in 2021, 2022, where you'd put a bid out and no one would bid on them. So happy that we've turned that page, and we've received some really great bids as well within engineering estimates or below. So that's exciting. So I'm confident in the list. Economy and supply chain ultimately tell us what we're going to get done in the year, but I absolutely think that the list that has been presented here is doable. There will be some carryover. 100% there will be carryover. There always is, just depending on where you can start it in the fiscal year. Obviously, all these projects will not start July 1st, 2027. But they are doable, and I think they're well thought out. They make our system better and add the improvements that we need for our departments. So, all right. Just for an overview, I want to just present to the council just what your 5-year CIP looks like for each of the divisions or departments or areas of emphasis. So airport projects, our airport projects are budgeted across the 5-year CIP. They are all, to this point, the ones that are FAA grant approved are approved to be in the year that they are listed currently. Now, we meet each year with the FAA and ADOT, and they review their funding and they review your projects to make sure it lines up with what the funding is. So that meeting just actually happened this week. So our airport manager was down in Phoenix meeting with the FAA. Great feedback from the FAA, and they're pretty much holding us stable with what we are presenting here. Drainage projects, as I mentioned, we have just recently adopted the 2025 WASH plan. That plan is being carried out through the 5-year CIP. I think it's worth noting that the county has proposed some funding changes for the WASH distribution, or I should say the tax distribution for the flood control. We're counting on them at least holding us to where we are right now and not taking any money away from us. But basically, based on where we are, these are the projects that we should be able to complete in the next 5 years, based on the funding that we receive from that.
Mayor, and then Ron, you're very, very kind in terms of the explanation coming from the county. But the county does have a plan to pull back dollars from Lake Havasu City. So all of our residents pay a property tax. You'll see a line item on there that's for flood control. Those dollars go to the county and then are largely distributed back to Havasu for our drainage projects, these wash improvements that we see that are so vitally important for the community. Their plan is to come back next year and cap the dollars that we're receiving right now. And whether it's 100% or at 80% levels, then the county would take the dollars that would otherwise come to Havasu above and beyond what they set the cap at. So it's like future assessments within the community for growth. Those dollars would remain with the county and be spent in other areas of the county. So I just want to make that clear that that's coming, that's out there. They're talking about it at their board meetings. They're providing them the information to us directly. That's going to have an impact on future drainage projects. So,
yeah, thanks. Thank you for the clarification. I was being nice. We're not happy about it. But again, we feel like with the dollars, if they just held us to what we're getting this year, that we should be able to carry out the projects that are currently listed. What that does for future, past 5 years, we'll have to see. But really excited what we've been able to do with drainage. Huge improvements with 77 miles of wash through our community. There's a whole bunch of opportunity for property damage and for and really infrastructure damage as well. So the efforts that we're making on our wash system has a huge plus for our community. So, and really happy to be able to have finished our 2016 plan and have a new plan and be able to start crossing projects off. It's always great to have a plan and see it come to fruition. All right. For general government, this is what the general government 5-year plan is currently looking at. Like I've covered the 27. We'll point out that we have several projects in the later years that are part, I know that some of them were part of the conversation that the council had at the council retreat in January. So there was discussion about the need to add multi-use fields. So that's been programmed in. Also, I've heard of this project, the outdoor pool. It's still in the 5-year CIP, but it's some additional monies have been added to it for inflation as well. And then the aquatic center, community center renovation is my understanding of that project is it's an effort to upgrade the building to be more accessible to all community members. And funded through grants. Understand that there's some really good grants that are helping communities take their community centers or their recreation centers and giving them an opportunity to make them more accessible. So that's that $800,000. And I know at the retreat, the council discussed Downtown Arch as a potential CIP project. So you'll see that that's actually the first time we're seeing that in the 5-year CIP. So anything else on that, Jess? All right. Street projects. So this is Councilor Campbell. This is what you were talking about. Is these are projects that we're actually able to do only because the council has basically provided additional funding to the streets to be able to take on a large resurfacing projects. So these projects go well and beyond our crack sealing projects. These are all resurfacing projects. So talked about ACOMA for 27, or for 28, 20, and 29. We're proposing to tackle Kiowa Boulevard, and that's basically from just past Industrial and really taking the repaving of Kiowa as far as we possibly can. And that PCI for Kiowa certainly Kiowa is a prime candidate to be worked on. We have some other smaller projects in 30 and 31, no less important, just not quite as large as what you've been seeing over the last couple of years, but just as important. So we've got sections of Swanson, Smoke Tree that need to be addressed, Lake Havasu Avenue. You've seen us addressing smaller sections of that as we can fit it in. And then the Beachcomber Boulevard and McCulloch Boulevard, those are both on the island. Those are heavily traveled roads with PCI scores declining, and we want to, obviously, with these roads, every single one of these roads that are on here are arterial or collector that have large amounts of traffic on them. So that's why they're appearing on there, is with the classification of the road and the PCI score. So excited, really happy that the council has given us the money to be able to do this, because there's a lot of communities that don't have this opportunity, to be completely honest. So they're living off of crack seal and chip seal, and that's only one or two ways to maintain roads. Our wastewater projects, this is one of two sheets on this. So before you think that we don't have any projects in mind for 31, I'll hit the clicker and show you that we have a lot more on here. Again, I want to point out that the North Regional part of our system is getting a whole bunch of attention and needs a whole bunch of attention. So you'll see it throughout this entire 5-year plan. And then, so in 5th year, again, Northwater, or the North End wastewater system, getting a lot of attention and frankly, much needed attention. And we really expect to see some cost savings because we're not having, like I said, we're converting some of the system to gravity feed, and we're not pumping one direction to then turn around and pump it another direction. So, on our water projects, we again continue to try to tackle upsizing and issues with tanks. That we obviously the tanks are vital to the system. Mainline replacement continues through the 5-year CIP. And then, of course, I've already mentioned the advanced metering infrastructure continuing. And there's one that I want to point out as being really super important is the water treatment plant rehabilitation in year 31 with design happening in 30. Our ability to treat water is we wouldn't have a community without it, to be completely honest with you. And so being able to take care of our plant, this will actually replace and make sure that our electronics and the vital infrastructure of the plant continues to be new. And I guess new things break down too, but they're much less likely to break down. So this is just an effort to be really proactive with our infrastructure, and that's coming. And so I guess I want to point that out because having the asterisks in fiscal years 29, 30, and 31, and knowing the importance of the projects that are landing just in year 5 alone suggests that we can't let go of rates and the understanding of how we're going to fund our system. And that's, this is one-time revenue, but obviously the continuing to be able to provide the great day-to-day operational service that we provide also lives and breathes with the rates that the council is willing to approve for the use of our divisions. And I believe that is the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Foggin and Ms. Olson. We appreciate that. Now we'll go through and ask questions from members of the council before we open a public hearing to hear from the public, and then we'll wrap up the discussion on this particular item. So with the capital improvement plan, I appreciate the comprehensive nature of it. I think it covers lots of really great priorities, investing in roads and infrastructure. It also in our public safety with Fire Station 7, the police rehab. It covers parks and some of the recreational things. We've received several emails from park users, field users, aquatic users. One that I found particularly helpful. It was 28 pages of feedback from residents talking about investing in our youth and ensuring that we had park amenities, we had enough fields for all those. So I would like to see us move up the programmed $3.5 million in 28, 29, move that all up so it would go to this fiscal year starting on July 1. So basically we would just shift in the middle of the screen here, we would shift that $7 million forward so that we can begin right at the beginning of fiscal year 27. We can start the process of getting additional field usage and availability for our users out there. So I would like to see that occur. And then I'll open up to questions on from any of our council members on any of the projects, and we'll get feedback throughout the discussion. Councilmember Lynn?
I just have a question. I have a few questions, but on this page that we're looking at on the outdoor pool, it says prior. Why is it blank? Because didn't we have money in there for the pool?
That's money that's spent. So prior is any money that's been spent. So yeah, we do have money in the budget, in this current budget, but as you know, council decided not to move forward with that. So the prior on these spreadsheets is money spent. No money was spent on the second.
Okay, so I guess I'm really confused. So we had at one time said we were going to put money into the pool. Where did that money go? Like, where did we spend it?
We didn't spend it. It'll be in the fund balance. So the $2.5 million that's programmed in the budget today for this fiscal year was not spent. Council decided not to spend it. So there's fund balances, there's budgets, and then there's, actually what was spent. There was no money spent on it. So.
Okay. And we did discuss moving up. I don't know if anybody discussed moving out of the 2930. And I guess the question I have, I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine with moving the fields up. On the pool, has there been any more discussion or research or anything on grants? Because I don't want that pool to go away. I feel like we're just pushed it out. And I know, Bullhead, they're getting a second outdoor pool, and I believe they got theirs with grants. Can we talk to anybody in grants or in that area to tell us if there's any more discussion on that?
Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, and then maybe if Anthony can talk a little bit about this. But two things: one, the Bullhead did receive a grant, came from legacy dollars. We don't have the ability to tap into that funding stream. So that's legacy dollars are for Bullhead projects. And Mr. Kozlowski could talk to that a little bit. You want to talk about some possible grants and things that are out there?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lynn. Yeah, the Bullhead project for the second pool is based off the legacy dollars from the sale of the hospital in the early 2000s. So that's a specific funding source for that area and that community. As far as additional grant opportunities, we're always looking for grants, no matter the project. But for this specific project, for the second pool, the heritage dollars, which is through national parks, would be the pot of funds that we'd be looking at to potentially provide additional funding for the second pool. That funding source would be about $1.5 million with a 50% match. However, this is also the potential pot of money for the splash pad as well. And at this point, working with federal agencies and national parks hasn't been easy as of late. Communication with them has been challenging. As far as my optimism, as far as receiving potential grant fundings through national parks, it potentially could be a challenge moving forward.
Okay, so I think I'm confused with you saying that you're kind of competing with that same pool of money for the splash pad and for the pool. What makes the splash pad more important than the pool?
What we would do, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, what we would do as far as determining which project would move forward, it would be based off of timing. It would be based off communicating with state parks, as well as our contacts at national parks to determine which project would potentially score higher and put us in the best position to be successful in receiving those dollars.
And Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, council tells us. Which one's more important? Which the one that's further up on the CIP is the one we're going to pursue the grant for.
And when I'm looking in here, I thought it was the splash pad that got moved up. And then with that all being said, with the splash pad and pools and all this, we have to look at maintenance and what that looks like. And I think, can you talk a little bit more about the splash pad in the bathrooms and how that works together with that grant?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, we were successful in receiving a State Lake Improvement Fund grant to improve the area for the potential location of the splash pad. We received $1 million grant through state parks, so that will provide the bathrooms. It'll improve the infrastructure as well as the parking lot to put us in a position to be able to add the splash pad once that project is complete.
But you can still get the bathrooms and all those ADA things without doing a splash pad.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, yes, the bathroom and the ADA improvements we have those funds. We've been awarded that grant and that project is moving forward.
Okay. So I guess really bluntly, we could choose going for a pool over a splash pad.
Or Councilmember Lynn, we can choose both. Do you have an interest in this discussion? Do you want to move the pool forward?
Yeah, I'd rather move the pool forward. I don't think that
the splash pad can stay as well. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like that, the council can give direction right now on how we would like to do that. So if the pool is a priority to you and you'd like to move that to fiscal year 27, and the council agrees, we can do that.
I would feel more comfortable doing that because I feel like we just told all these users you were going to get it last year, and then council supposedly made a different decision on that, and now we're moving you to 2930. I'd rather see it move up. I don't want to take it away from fields or anything like that, but if there's an opportunity to move it up and there's grants that are available that we can go for, I would rather move it up.
Yeah, I think we can do all of those things. That's great conversation. Yeah, Councilmember Koch, did you have something to add?
And forgive me for my lack of knowledge on this, but I don't frequent that area, the Aquatic Center, much. Is that splash pad still operable that was outside of the pool at the Aquatic Center?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Koch, it is. It is an older splash pad over there. Some of the apparatus and things like that are older and aging, but it is still operable and can be used. Yes.
So I guess I'm thinking in the interim, because I believe isn't that the space where we would potentially put the pool? But in the interim, would it not be like if we're looking for a facility for a splash pad that would be accessible, could we not somehow make that just accessible without paying a fee to use the Aquatic Center? Could we not make that just open to the public, and we're operating it anyway? And instead of spending money on a separate splash pad right now, make that an interim fix until the pool's put in?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Koch, I do believe that the splash pad over there is open when the Aquatic Center is
But they'd
in
have
the
to
pool.
pay a fee then to use
Correct.
the Aquatic
Yes.
Center.
Yeah.
The bathroom considerations and some of those things as well. Yeah. So, all right. So we have a couple of discussions going on. Do you want to maybe just go through the rest of your questions, Councilmember Lynn, on other items as well, and then maybe we'll jump down to Councilmember Moses and make our way along the dais.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about the fields. This has been like ongoing since 2014 with the field, so I'm glad. I'm happy we're moving that forward or having those discussions. The downtown arch, I know that we have some council members that are pretty passionate about it, but for the $750,000, I'd be okay with removing that right now. And I see it's in 28, 29, so it's not really in this year's budget. The channel bathrooms, I'm okay with. Can somebody just explain a little bit more about that public safety equipment storage? I understand the reason for it. I don't want to say this out there. I don't remember having the discussion where this was talked about, that this was a need. Can somebody explain this?
Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, if it's okay, I could ask Chief Sterling to explain the details of that project and the need for it.
Just clarification, Mayor. This has been on the 5-year CIP. It just we changed the title of it to more match what was being considered. Prior to this year, the title of this was parking structure. So it has been on the CIP, just under a different title. So
that helps.
Sorry.
Okay.
What was the title before? Yep, and it's on page 36 of our book if you want to follow along there. Chief?
Good morning, everyone. So yes, this project actually historically was something that we wanted to look at back in 2007, and then the recession hit, and so that just kind of took a back burner. But ultimately, the concept behind this project is we have a lot of very expensive equipment, to include our Bearcat, our tactical van that supports our bomb robot, and of course we have a command trailer that sits outdoors. And so, as you all know, the elements don't treat these expensive items very, very nicely. And so having essentially a garage structure, environmentally cooled, climate controlled environment for those expensive things is what the concept is for this.
Thank you. Okay, I'm good with you. Thank you. If we're talking about that we're hurting with revenue coming in, and we're going to talk about outdoor pools and splash pads and new things in Parks and Rec, which I'm good with. Are we looking at what the maintenance of all that is, or are we going to be able to handle those costs?
Yeah, so in our book that we have in front of us, there's an operating budget impact or other box. So for each of these items, it indicates what the considerations there may be for the operating impacts. And those, when I read through the book, I was able to ascertain that they are taking that into consideration.
Okay, we're comfortable with that. Okay. And then this is super important to me. Fire Station 7. I wish we were further along than we are, but I have high hopes. But I do have a question. we have had projects in the past, and I know we're moving forward, that have gone over budget. And if this fire station goes over $9 million, are we prepared for that and what that looks like? If we start it, we have to finish it. And do we have room for that if we have to add to it?
Mr. Knudsen?
Mayor, Councilman Berlin, as far as projects going over budget, we can talk about that a little bit too. And then I want to relate that back to the multi-use fields for a similar perception that occurred with the courthouse and the funding of this structure right here. As far as Fire Station 7 goes, we received 100% design. We'll know here within the next 30 days exactly what that guaranteed maximum price is. That is not going to impact the timeline, the construction, or anything else related to Fire Station 7. We think we have a great handle on what the construction costs are going to be. But if any surprises come up, we'll take it out of Jeff Tuneman's budget. So that's obviously we'll find dollars to make sure that that project proceeds. And with any luck, we'll see that come in a little under budget or right at budget. But we've had conversations for several months with the project management team, with all the folks that are there. So multi-use fields. So when we play back the video, we can start at this point. Multi-use fields, the $7 million identified for multi-use fields, that is a number that we identified in last year's budget process. That was the dollars that were remaining in the CIP. We have a pretty good understanding of what those fields might look like in terms of construction, but that is not an actual estimate for the construction of the ball fields. That is the dollars that were remaining in the CIP that we identified and we put in that slot for multi-use fields, whether ball fields or soccer fields or whatever it is. That is not based on any estimates at all. So I want to make sure we understand that. Also, the fact that we don't have the land based on the concept of what we're trying to do with multi-use fields. I'm very hopeful that we'll have it here in the next, or a plan for all that here in the next 3 to 4 months. But the concept here is to work with the school district for the property that they own on Buena Vista on the south side of town and utilize a portion of the school district's property for the city to spend money on and construct fields. So a couple things. The one that dollar that's on the multi-use fields is not an estimate. It is purely the dollars that were remaining in the CIP to fund that effort. And we don't own the land, but I think we're very, very close on leasing that land from the school district. So
We've already started those conversations?
The IGA, or intergovernmental agreement between the city and the school district, expires in June 30. And we started those conversations with the school district, and verbally we've started those conversations 2 years ago. But they have a draft copy of the IGA that we're proposing. They receive free water and sewer service from the city that is right around a value of about $500,000 per year. They receive our school the funding that we provide as a city for school resource officers, and then typically and a lot of communities across the state. That's a 50-50 split when it comes to the paying for that level of service. We're okay with continuing the water and wastewater. We're okay with providing 100% cost for a school resource officer. But as a city, we need some things in return that we would perceive as value. And leasing that space at low cost from the school district would be one of the two things that we're talking about right now. So, yeah, we're talking about it.
And one more thing on Fire Station 7. So if we feel comfortable with the $9 million, we're going to have to put people in there. We're going to have to staff people in there. We're going to have to buy equipment in there. This doesn't take any consideration into that. Do we have the funding to do that?
Mayor, Councilmember Berlin, we'll talk about the ongoing at the next budget work session. We'll be talking about, as indicated before, by Vice Mayor, it's going to identify increased staffing levels by the city. So we're going to have to contribute towards more staff for Fire Station 7. That's going to increase our staffing levels, right? That's going to be an annual cost of about $1.2 million for 6 firefighters, EMTs, in that facility. You're going to see that number identified in the May session. But yes, that is 1,000%. We understand what that cost is. We want to build the station, we want to man the station, and we want to provide services out of that station.
6 firefighters cost us $200,000 a year apiece.
PSPRS, all the equipment that's associated. We want to provide them with equipment, the tools, the resources, and all the rest. That is the cost to the city for firefighter EMTs.
I think that's what I have right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Moses, we'll just make our way down the dais. Do you have a question? Councilmember Lynn is done.
Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for those questions, Michelle. I had a lot of the same ones, so we don't need to rehash it. For the public safety equipment storage, where are they being stored right now? Are they, I mean, we have some covered parking. Are they under covered parking, or are they really just out in the middle of a lot and being beaten?
Good morning again. So yes, currently our Bearcat, our old gas pump that we had at the police department, we are currently storing it under that. So it gets about 3/4 of the day shade. We've already had to replace the tires because it is exposed to the elements. The command trailer, the current one that we do have, is stored outside, I believe at Fire Station 1 right now. And our bomb robot negotiation van is currently being stored outdoors, yes, in the sun.
Thank you. The other question I had was actually towards the airport. I don't necessarily I'm trying to recall back to our discussions before at the last retreat. I don't remember us. Can we just recap that, what we talked about? And with I thought we were looking at having of us doing the dirt work and then having somebody else come build the hangars. And so can we recap that for me and maybe?
So that's page 10 of our books.
Yeah, thank you.
Council members.
Mayor, Councilor Moses. So just a recap, the first part of this project, you were absolutely correct. We're putting in the horizontal, doing the horizontal work to basically have utilities available to develop the first taxiway of that section of the airport. What we've talked about and what we're anticipating doing is we are anticipating doing an RFP for the project to see if the money that the city invested encourages private investment, and if we're able to identify someone through that process that puts together a plan that we think are going to basically provide, I want to say 36 hangars in the development, then we'll be off and running. If in that process of having the horizontal utilities done and no one shows up to the table, or we don't receive an RFP that we feel is going to get that done, we proposed in fiscal year 28 to go vertical. So that's the what we talked about. What the council had mentioned was that they wanted to see if there was some private interest. We 100% agree with that. We'll go through an RFP process, and perhaps the need for the city to have to do something in the future may be reduced or go away entirely. One of the things that we do want to do is we need some airport dedicated city-owned hangar space. So even if we do go through a successful RFP process, we're proposing that we leave the 1.3 in there to actually be able to do city-owned hangar space and perhaps a maintenance, aircraft maintenance facility that we would lease out.
Mr. Fogg, and then city-owned, Mr. Mayor, city-owned hangar space be used to lease out for small business to attract more services to the airport. That's what the intended use would be with city-owned.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, that'd be huge. So potentially, if we do find a suitor, that would be about $1.3 million that could go back to the general fund for uses like streets or pools and splash pads, et cetera.
Yeah, depending on how the RFP process goes. Okay.
Yep. All right. I guess the other thing that I'll weigh in on, and I don't think it needs to be said, but I'll say it, is 100% okay with moving up ball fields. I've been working a long time on this, and all field. I say ball fields, and then the soccer people get a little mad at me. I don't mean that. I just mean field space. They all need it, and I'm okay with moving it up. I share the same concerns as Michelle as far as the pool goes. I do kind of feel like feel bad, like the rug got swept up from underneath them. The pool is still a priority to me, but I wouldn't say as much as the field space. The fields serve more, and I can only qualify that by saying that the fields serve more people than the pool does. And so that's the only reason why I'm saying it. They're both, if it's 100% priority, and then pool is 99% priority. So they're right there. I think just the fields serve more people.
Thank you, Councilmember Moses. Councilmember Koch?
Chief Sterling, I'm going to put you on the spot again. I have a question on the police facility. I know we've been talking about the repairs and improvements over the years, and you got the federal grant a couple of years ago, and so you started the project. If you could give me just a rough percentage of how far you think you are on what you need to do over there overall, just out of curiosity.
Well, phase one incorporated the jail rehab. So the jail rehab portion is complete, and a lot of that was covered by that grant funding that we received. The phase one also incorporated some of the downstairs underground piping, electrical, those type of things. Phase two was always going to be the HVAC system, the cooling towers, the roof, and upstairs plumbing and electrical, those type of things. So that was always the plan. And so, obviously, Public Works team and with Phil Porter being the project manager, they've been working on putting together those specs and trying to figure out what the right thing was to go after, especially for the HVAC system, because we have a unique system at our facility. And so now that they've gone out to bid, this is just we're hoping to be in those numbers. Does that answer your question?
So would you say from what needs to be done, are you at 50% done, or with what's in the budget? I mean, where are we going to have this? Is there going to be another phase of this after this budget?
Oh God, I hope no.
That's what I was trying to get at. Are we covering all the bases?
There are some things, and Ron could probably speak more clearly on this, but essentially there are some added alternatives that we're hoping that will be encompassed in this piece. We have some budgeted items that we've been hanging on to and carrying forward to replace our cubicles, those type of things, to upgrade the interior as well. So we're really trying to stay optimistic that ultimately everything will come in this budget and we can get that accomplished.
And having the new parking is probably a great bonus, huh?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I would just say as well, the fields have been something we've talked about since I was on council. We had many times, but it's overwhelming now. I think we have way more participants in all the sports, and there's less and less availability, and it seems to be really hurting our young families. So and I don't know, Jess, what would be, how soon we would be able to get any maybe possible numbers. I mean, I know this is a placeholder that we just threw in there, but is there going to be a potential, before we're done with budgets, to have any kind of idea numbers by any?
Mayor, Council, Mayor, Councilmember Koch, yes, we'd be able to do that. One of the reasons why we split up into 2 years here was that we could kind of start that process and then come back to council in terms of what that, after the design is completed, we'll know what that number is. So we split up into two numbers over the course of 2 years to kind of spread that out a little bit. Guy Reynolds is our parks superintendent. He put some back of the napkin. He put a lot of work into it. So looked at kind of what that is. Based on his estimates, we're a little short with that number, but we'll know more so when we get into that design what that number would be. There's just so much unknowns in terms of the school district's participation. How many acres? We're asking for 25 acres. The initial feedback is that they're coming back with a smaller number in terms of acres. How many fields? How many ball fields, how many soccer fields, all those types of things are all part of that conversation. So our Parks Master Plan will help us decide a little bit in terms of some of the demand tied to that. And all that will give us more of a final figure. So I won't have a final figure between now and the end of the fiscal year, but if council would like to move up that to year one for, starting on July 1st, that would allow us to be able to spend some dollars on design and getting that process underway.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right. Vice Mayor Diaz?
Yes. On the aquatic center renovations, the 800,000, is that to make it? What is the? Can we explain what the renovation? Are we talking about making it ADA accessible, or I heard something about someone said to make it more accessible to all our residents. What are we referring to?
Mayor and Vice Mayor Diaz, Mr. Kozlowski can identify that, but I want to reiterate that there's no dollars tied to that project from the general fund or from the city funds. That's purely if the city receives a grant, we would pursue this project. But Mr. Kozlowski?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Diaz, that $800,000 grant is through SSP, so our state special projects grant through CDBG. If we are successful in receiving those dollars, it would go towards improvements to ADA accessibility, so widening hallways, making things more easier in the locker rooms and areas like that for those with disabilities to be able to access the aquatic center.
Thank you. And I'm glad that we just learned from the questioning about that the splash pad's not tied to the restroom grant. Thank you. We could move forward on that. I had a question about that. Ball fields are, and I agree with Councilmember Moses and everyone else, they're very important, but they're also very, very expensive. I've done these in the city I worked with before, and I'm glad, Jess, you just mentioned the $7 million we have earmarked here is just strictly it's not an actual budget. Placeholder. It's just a placeholder, but they're expensive. So I hope we leave no stone unturned when it comes to looking at grants for ball fields also. The water main projects, the numbers, it says, let me see what I put down. Water main project budget. Oh, for the water main breaks. Is that a number of money just based on, we know how old they are and how many we have, and where did that number come from? Because it's a big number.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, basically that is the amount of money that the water funds will support to replace as much mainline as we can. So it's millions more could be spent on line replacement, 100%.
It's just an estimate also, a guesstimate.
Well, we basically, when we budget, we take that number. So if you look at 4.5 million for fiscal year 27, we are already programmed and have designed for lines that qualify based on age, number of breaks, and what they're made out of. So we already have the money programmed, the project's programmed for that money. But there's miles of line that need to be replaced.
Thank you, sir. And I noticed there's numbers in here also for the second bridge, like water and sewer infrastructure. So that money is not part of the 35.5 million. That's just above and beyond the 35.5 million, correct? Okay. And then we've heard a lot this morning about we're going to be a shortfall on the money that we have. We might have to raise water rates and so forth to people. I think we're all really, really striving to be fiscally responsible here. I see it every time we get together. So I'm going to make a statement, and probably something we have to vote on as a council. But we just spent $250,000 on a parks master plan. We should reconsider that based on some changes, not only what we just found out today, but also what's going on with Parks and Recreation right now. With we're not going to have a parks director as of May 1. So I would like to see possibly we could talk about rescinding that. And I read the contract. We can rescind it based on as long as we give them a 30-day notice. I think we should look at that, and that'll show some really fiscal responsibility to the citizens of this town if we don't spend $250,000 for a master parks plan at this time. So that's just what I want to know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just if I may on that, I would disagree that that's a fiscally responsible thing to do. We've already spent money. We already had the kickoff meeting. And one of the key components of the Parks Master Plan is the grant funding opportunities that it'll provide. So once that plan is put into place, and now more than ever, when we have so many users and so many citizens that are wanting more access to our parks, it would be better that we can address this in a cohesive manner where, instead of the way we've done it in the past, and I think I had the same discussion when we talked about the Parks Master Plan, is the users that are using it today advocate for park improvements for the future. And then their children age out of the system and they never get the benefit. So the folks that were advocating for Cypress, for example, for the soccer community, those folks, their children, when we started that process, they aged out of the youth soccer program by the time Cypress opened for them. So I'm open to the conversation, but I just framing it in another way, we do need a Parks Master Plan to help achieve additional grants and ensure that the future needs are met and that we don't have our children and our families without spaces to be able to use in the meantime.
So can I hear that a lot? I hear that we have to spend money to save money or spend money to get money. So where does it says that we have to spend $250,000 in order to get grants? I mean, I believe you if it's true, but I hear it all the time, but where is that?
Vice Mayor Diaz, you mentioned $250,000. I'm not talking about that dollar figure. I'm talking about in this very competitive landscape of grants, when we have data-backed and data-driven information to provide, the success rate for us to get additional grants is much greater. And so, I mean, it's more encompassing than just that. And, although there will be some upcoming changes in the Parks Department, it doesn't mean we're not going to have a Parks and Recreation Director. There'll be a new person.
I'll go back to what I said when we had this conversation at the council meeting when this was on there, that I think we have very qualified, intelligent individuals in our Parks Department and also citizens that could be a part of some kind of a committee to walk around and drive around this whole community and tell us where we need fields and what we need to do. And I just feel it's a waste of money, but we could have that discussion.
Yeah, and we did have that discussion.
Yeah, I know.
It passed 4-3. Councilmember Lynn does have.
Yeah, I have a question on that Parks and Rec master plan. Will that go into detail with fields?
Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, 1,000%. That is, we're going to do an inventory and assessment in terms of what we have. We're going to do inventory and assessment in terms of the needs and demands of our residents, and bring all that together.
So we possibly, moving forward, if we go forward with the fields, we would have to probably do this anyway. Yes or no? No? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Do we have to do what anyway?
Would we have to actually do a study, or could that something our staff could do?
We're going to need to assess how many ball fields we need and how many soccer fields we need based on the number of leagues and participants and all that's out there. So yeah, that's a part of the process that we're going to have to do. I mean, do we build 2 ball fields, 4? Do we have 1 soccer field, 2? It's all soccer, all ball fields? We're going to have to make a determination on what the demand is from our residents. So,
okay.
And then if I can on the Parks Master Plan, a little bit on that and tying that back to grants, because we want grants for splash pads, we want grants for pools, we want grants for some of these park amenities. The benefit of that Parks Master Plan is the assessment, inventory, and then looking at the demand of our residents for existing or future. But it's critical in terms of grants. If we're not getting 10 times a return in grants that are funded for parks over the next 5 to 10 years, then I would be sorely disappointed in that. When you write out a grant application, you find a grant source, and then you write a grant application. You talk about the needs that you have, and then 1,000% that grant application is going to say, is this project supported by a plan? Is this project supported by your city council? They are not going to give us a grant unless they know that it's been thought of and it's council supported, it's in the budget, it's in a plan. We're simply not going to get a grant unless it's identified in the CIP or through planning documents. So that's why that component is important. Council will decide what the best route is in terms of what that may or may not look like. But I do want to emphasize the fact that we will receive grants, outside dollars coming into Havasu based on a plan.
Thank you. Right. 1 second. I'm sorry, Mr. Diaz. Would it be possible, and I know that we don't like to bring staff up, but would it be possible to bring up our grant writer that she could maybe explain how that process works? Would that be okay? for Jet to come up?
Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, Ms. Ari, if you could maybe talk about grant process and what's important when applying for a grant,
Thank you.
matching up our needs with grant opportunities.
Hi, thank you for the invitation. One of the benefits of having a Parks Master Plan is it actually gives myself a direction on how you would like to prioritize projects, what's the most feasible as far as setting up fields, pools, all of those things, in what order we can pursue. And when I'm looking at funders, one of the questions, as City Manager Jess had said, is that they ask, what is the commitment from the community? What is the commitment from the City Council? Do you have any plans in place? And that tends to score us higher on rubrics. It gives us more skin in the game, so to speak, and gives us a stronger application.
Do you, I know this is probably a loaded question here. What is your return? Like, what do you think your return is? Like at a percentage on, if we did this master plan and we apply for these grants, like what is it? We're going to spend 250,000, like Mr. Diaz asked, Vice Mayor Diaz asked, like, what's our return on that? Are we going to get 300,000 for the 250 we spent?
That would be a very hard question for me to answer, but when I look at what Arizona State Parks and Trails and what the National Parks and Trails funds, they are looking at typically now a minimum of $1.5 million. So I would say even one of those projects that we'd receive would cover the cost of this. Some of our national parks grants, they have some that are upwards of $30 million.
Thank you, Ms. Sorry. Yeah, Vice Mayor Diaz?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of talking things out. She just changed my mind, and the way you explained that. So, okay, I'm all good with that now. Thank you very much. I'm really impressed with Jill and Ron, your presentation this morning, and how you guys laid out the numbers, made it really easy to evaluate like priorities and so forth, and where we place them on the game, on the board here. So I thank you guys for your efforts, and I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Diaz. Councilmember Campbell?
Thank you. If I heard correctly that we are concerned about the future, it looks like the general fund is kind of depleting about $10 million, and we don't know what the long-term vision of what our financial is going to be. And it seems like we are putting a lot of stuff in this first 2 years, not even knowing what the next few years look like. Can you guys tell me again, how close are we to that expenditure limit?
In our preliminary numbers right now and estimating the expenditure limitation for FY27, we are still under it, but only by about just under $7 million.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, we'll be adding at least $1.2 million that will be consistent when we put in Fire Station 7, and that does not include electric and water. We know what this place has cost us since we built it. It's pretty big. And so I think I'm really quite nervous. I don't want to be this council member that comes up here later and says, oh, we're going to increase our expenditure limit, because I think when we were putting that out to ballot, we were adamant that we're going to do this one time and we're never going to do this again. Now, if funding's coming in, I get it, but I have concerns about the future of how we're going to continue to pay for all of these things that we've been doing since I've been on council. We had a lot of different one-time projects. And Mr. Foggins has said it. We're not even close to the main line. Let's be, this is a beautiful presentation. This is more money than I'd ever expect to see. I'm glad we're investing in our roads. I'm glad we're investing in our water and infrastructure, but it is extremely important. And one thing I don't see anywhere on here is the alleyways. Again, crumbling. The PCIs on them, they showed to be the worst in the city were our alleys. What are underneath those alleyways is some of the oldest sewer and water infrastructure that we have. And we're not talking about, oh, I didn't get to take a shower this morning because my residential had a little mainline break. We're talking somebody's livelihood. You go down to the industrial park area, you'll be appalled at the level of disrepair, maintenance. And nowhere in here do I see we're even addressing one alleyway, which is extremely important. I've even actually seen Sim when I'm riding my e-bike through the alleyways, and you could see water just coming through the alleyways. You know something's going on under there because there's no reason for water to be sitting there. And then, of course, there's lots of potholes. So, again, I'm nervous about, if I was to pick fields or pools, it would be fields. Because we've been talking about it since 2016. We spent $650,000. Speaking of a study, what we could have done with that. Holy moly. That could have been, for the one out at Sarah Park. And what do I notice when I go to Sarah Park? I think when I used to play softball there with my husband back in the day, I think the same bathrooms are there, the same fences there. I think we just updated fences. The same lighting was there. I mean, it had never, I think the things that have been improved there, like the hockey fields and stuff, were brought in by outside sponsors, and they weren't even, the city has just kind of turned their back on that facility. I know we're now investing in it. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So if I was to say anything, I do see the facility, the pool to be pushed back a little bit. And the reason why I say that is, what's the conversation with GCU? Where are we at with that? Because when I talked to GCU, they said that they have one of the most successful swim teams in Arizona. And if they came here, the amount of money they contributed to every community is massive. And they said, we'd love to bring an Olympic-sized pool here. Havasu would be the best place to do these competitions. So if that's even a possibility, I can see the logic of just let's not do it all in the next 2 years and then be looking back and coming to the citizens and going, we can't afford all this. Sorry, you guys. And now we got to go and get another proposition to do an expenditure limit. And, we hit our cap, and now what? Many of us may be off council by now, but that's not really nice to do the next council. So I think that we should be a little more conservative. I do appreciate all the roads. I do appreciate the water mains, but there's not enough money for that. But we're going to just understand that we've done way more in the last 5 years than we ever, I think, in the history of Havasu, other than when we did the sewer main project back in the day. But to deny the fact that all of these wants are more important, they're not. They're not. And there is a water main that has broken so many times that is going up Jamaica into Lake Havasu Avenue. And when you realize that water main services all of the Riviera and a lot of the golf course, and let's talk about the golf course. The golf course is one of the original land developments in Lake Havasu City. They had original sewer underneath there. And my husband's family came in 1965, and there was a whole nother family here before that were building that infrastructure. So we're talking that infrastructure is really, really old, all over the golf course. I do not see one water main repair here. I do not see anything for that. And if you look at even the roads, I had houses on that street. It was unbelievable. If you ever look at the roads, they're like just rubbery because they've had so much crack fill, everything. They've never touched anything underneath because they weren't part of the new sewer project. They haven't been touched. So again, I know I've been told, whatever you do, you can't vote for Campbell again because she'll never help you with fields. Well, that's not true because she only cares about roads. And there's been some other things that aren't so nice been told about me. But in the meantime, I am absolutely for it. All my grandkids are at every one of those fields. We sponsor all the fields. We donate and grade lots, and we do it all the things. As a family, we have been involved in the community from day one. Anything the sports or any children need, I think the Campbell's name are probably connected to it, some way or another. So to be told I don't care about fields or I don't care about the kids is a blatant lie. That's just a blatant lie. So in the meantime, I would say let's push the pool back a little bit, push it back where it is. We can always move it up. Let's have some negotiations when and if GCU comes here. Let's focus on the fields and then continue to focus like we're doing on water, infrastructure, wastewater. Those are really important. So there's my soapbox on that. And let's start the conversation. But I do know that not all the school board members have been party to this conversation. And so I hope that it moves forward. And I hope that you guys get the fields. But I hope you understand about the pool. I'm not saying no to the pool. I'm saying let's just keep it where it's at for now.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. So it seems like we have, as far as changes or things that we would like to see when this comes back for tentative adoption, is we would like to move the fields up shift that up so it'd start in fiscal year 27. And then the pool is, we have the ability to do it now. It gives us the flexibility should we want to. We have the capacity to be able to move that forward. We can always do it as a carry forward. To your point, we can have discussions with other partners and other folks that are coming here. Just because it's in this budget, all of these items would have to come back before council for a public hearing as well as for discussion and approval from the council. So, yeah, Mr. Knudsen.
Mayor, council, if I can, one thing. Could you pull up the spreadsheet? We have a spreadsheet. We'll kind of show you that kind of looks at some of the numbers that where they might where they could look at if we move some things around. A little bit different exercise than we've done in the years past. But one thing we got to be kind of careful with is if we push all those projects up to year 1 and year 2, we have no projects for years 3, 4, and 5. And then considerations with regards to, and then can we move the ball fields up to the way that council's indicated? And the expenditure limitation is a concern. And as well as we had Mr. Ron Foggin, our public works director, that presented at the last council meeting and showed us all the work. And then he lists how many projects that he wants to tackle for year 1 and next year. We only have so many staff and so many resources for us to accomplish these things. So I want to kind of put that out there in terms of dollars are available for all of these projects, but expenditure limitation is a concern, and our ability to complete the project is also a concern. And obviously, our residents would expect it if it was identified. And but so to kind of put that out there too. The other thing to consider for council too is we have splash pad at 1.5 million. The likelihood of us getting that grant is, I'll say, this is just Jess, 20%. So the likelihood of us building that splash pad is pretty low. So we'll need a little bit of should we continue with that path? The splash pad and wait for grant dollars, or is that something that makes sense for our residents? So I want to throw all that out there, right? So in terms of we can't move everything up to year 1. So that's going to be the knee-jerk reaction of what it is. So I need a little bit of prioritization coming from council in terms of what's important, just based on our ability as a city to implement and get that done. So I'm sorry for the interruption.
Oh, that's good conversation. Thank you. Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
I totally agree with him. I have exactly the same concerns he has. It's just like we have been building, and we're talking about expenditure limits, almost hitting them. That's huge. I did forget to tell you where it says aquatic community center renovation. If we do that, I would really, truly love to see some extra money in that budget there. That would include the parking lot. If we get the bid, we're talking about ADA. When you're going across more crack seal and more potholes than you are to get to the building, that is extremely dangerous. And for people that I had she cares more about parking lots than she does our children. Well, I care about the people that fall in parking lots and get concussions and trip, and it's hard to get there. So, it's a fact. So we have to be able to safety is important to me too. So could we possibly push that, even if, like we said, if we get rid of the splash pad, we might have a little bit more money in our budget. I know we said it was grant only, but how do we look at if we're going to renovate, it seems weird to me that we're renovating the inside when the outside is just crumbling. We did half of the parking lot, but we didn't do the front half. And it is what is the PSI on that? Did we ever do that one on that? That parking lot's horrible.
I'm not aware of the PCI on that. I don't know if we actually ran the vehicle across that parking lot.
Okay. Well, I don't think you have to. I think you can visually see it. It's pretty
Mayor,
bad.
Councilor Campbell, we have parking lot funds available to tackle parking lots every year.
Okay.
So the next parking lot that we're actually going to go after is the Aquatic Center.
Okay.
And that is going to be within the next month or so.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. That's really important to me, so we don't have to put it in here.
Correct.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Or Moses?
What if we were to move the outdoor pool from 26-27 to 27-28, just to smooth things out and leave some option open for Nancy's possibility of partners or GCU or whoever?
Yeah, I think that seems logical to me. It'll give us time to, it'll give the Public Works team time to work through projects, see what other partners are there. I think that's really workable.
And then waiting to see what happens with the airport hangar project, that could dictate some more things too, was as far as the splash pad, where that goes. And so maybe moving the splash pad back into either year 2 or 3. That way we can see what happens with the hangars.
Yeah, the only challenge with the splash pad is there's no dollars.
There's no dollars to it, right? So you're right.
But do we want to put dollars to it? There's that possibility too. And then what does that do to the spreadsheet?
I wouldn't want to put dollars to it. At least this is just my opinion. I wouldn't want to put dollars to it just yet. I'd like to wait to see what happens, both with revenues, and everything else moving forward. So,
if I can, Mayor and Councilmember, so like doing that, so there's blue numbers up there and there's red numbers up there. So the change that we made with moving the outdoor pool up to year 2 is we don't have the funds to do that. Look at the top where we have the available, where it says ending fund balance. We see red numbers. In the past, I've talked a lot about the CIP being a puzzle that you put together. This is what I'm referring to. And trying to match up available dollars and available years throughout there. And right now, the puzzle is incomplete because we have red figures on there or a deficit in year 2 for the CIP.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Lynn?
But on that, but I hear what you're saying. I see the red number, but we have till 27, 28 to see if we can make those partnerships with possibly GCU. And I hate even throwing that out there because I don't know if that's even something plausible. But, no, and no offense to that, Councilmember Campbell. I'm just saying I don't know if that's even something they'd want to do, but it also would give us a chance to look at those grants. And maybe this, with the field study that we're doing, or this parks plan, would that even look at pools? Maybe this would,
Absolutely.
It might give us an opportunity to change that number and maybe we'll get it fully funded somehow. Maybe we'll be lucky we get a legacy grant or something.
If I can, Mayor and Councilmember Lynn, so we don't have any legacy grants. That's not a thing for Havas. So that's only a bullet with the sale of the hospital that occurred several decades ago. If we want to keep the outdoor pool, as we see here with everything else that's identified, that means we're going to identify $1 million for the outdoor pool for general fund and $2.5 million for grants. When we talk about a fully funded CIP and we make that commitment to our residents, that's what that means. That we're not passing a CIP with a deficit. So we can either move it back to year 3, or can we see what that looks like in terms of the Angie? What that looks like in terms of red numbers, or we can identify it as a 3.5 with a million in general fund and 2.5 in grants. So we're 624, but there's some things that we could probably take a look at.
Mayor, Jess, and this is, like I said, it's fun. And then this is what we are constantly doing with these projects, right?
Imagine doing this with water and wastewater.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. But one of the things that I would point out is that there's really no reason to front load your multi-use fields because you're going to need a design. So just in consideration of your fund balance, you're going to want to do design in year 1, and then you're going to want to feather the rest of that out so that helps that bottom line, because you're basically tying up $3.5 million that you're not going to spend because there's going to be design.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, just maybe take fiscal year 27 and make it be $1 million, and make 27, 28 be 5.5 million, or 6 million probably. Yeah, 6 million, right?
And we always say, let the staff do their job, and it seems like they've worked way harder than any of us on this. And where they had these placed was probably for a really good reason. And I think what they're asking is, what's the priority to the council? The council, it sounds like the priorities are fields over pools and splash pads. That's what it seems like to me. So I think that looks great. Yeah.
So I think, overall direction, you guys can iron out the numbers before it comes back before us, but I think we know where we stand on those items. So, all right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? If so, just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record. It should be green.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, my name is Donna Bess Carlton, And thank you for allowing me to approach the mayor and council. And I appreciate all of you and your hard work. So just a couple of things that your discussion brought to me, and quick question. So we currently have a plan, a design for fields for Sarah Park. Do we have any design at all for Buena Vista yet? Are we saying we don't have a design for Buena Vista? For fields?
No, we do not.
We do not. Everybody agrees with that? Right, and we don't have a design. Okay. Then on our 2016, and just shooting from the hip here, general plan that we did, that study, and it was good for 10 years, so it's good till this year, which probably July 1st is the end. But it was revised in 2023. So that means I'm just wondering if maybe Vice Mayor Diaz, I like the idea of that $250,000, and I know we need those plans to get those grants. That really does help us get grants. However, if it was revised in 2023, we don't have to spend the money again. So if somebody could look at that, and if that will work, we got another 10 years and we still got the commitment in those plans that will help us get those same grants. So maybe we could look at that, and that 250 can be used somewhere else. Let's see, what were my other messages or notes? So I've already reached out to the Diamondbacks and to the Cardinals. You know, we had the Suns when I was working for Parks and Recreation. We reached out to them and they came in and completely redid the gym, of course, which is now ASU, I guess, currently. And so we'll be reaching out to those groups to also see what they can help us with. But we got to be careful not to get the cart in front of the horse, because they're going to want to know what our plans are. If we could use old plans, the one that we revised in 2023, did that add to where we could get another 10 years out of it? So the whole idea is to get moving. I have the 10-year of what we accomplished the first 10 years in-house with our own staff that are talented and capable. And they hired the groups that came in. Many of them decided to live here and stay and continue to take care of the beautiful parks and fields they took care of, they built. That 10-year study or the 10-year plan that was accomplished, I have the first 10 years and the second 10 years. And what we did in the first 20 years as a community and as a government and as a city staff in all departments was pretty phenomenal and won many, many awards. I know we're capable of moving forward. I have mentioned to, basically, she's like a daughter that's sitting here with me, Lexi, that our next step as parents and community is to show you how much we are willing to give skin in the game and start raising some funds of our own to go towards these facilities, whether they're bake sales, fundraisers, whatever we also can do. And then I'm going to let Lexi tell you about some of the things we do when we go out of town, because we can't do it here. So when we follow our children and grandchildren and out of town to go to these tournaments and these different things, and we have to pay for rooms and pay for restaurants, there's other ways for us to make money here to help pay for not only the infrastructure, but the ongoing maintenance of these new fields. And Lexi can tell you about that, but ways that we can generate revenue to help offset the cost of maintaining whether it's the pool competitions, whether it's, softball, baseball, little league, soccer competitions. And we need to share those ideas with you. It's great to copy what other cities are doing rather than recreate the wheel. Now, I was told sports complex, fields, whatnot, they lose money. They don't make money. You're absolutely right. They do lose money. Many things lose money, but the community benefits from it, and it makes us all healthy.
Thank you, Ms. Bess Carlton. The general plan, we're actually in the process of updating it right now. So the 2023, there was never an update to the general plan. So 2016 and then 20, that goes through this year and actually, oh, it's a parks plan?
I'm talking about the 2016 general plan that all the fields, pools, all the recreational needs that we did when I was working there. And it says it was revised June 27th of 2023. So I thought maybe if it was revised from that point, it would be good for another 10 years.
No, the current one is going to be in front of voters in the general election this November. So it'll be in front of planning and zoning this next month, and then in front of council in June, and then in front
Well, the current one was the meeting that I was at. That's the one we just spent $250,000 on?
No, that's a parks master plan.
Okay. So the general fund, though, also included parks, recreation,
General
fields.
plan, yes, it includes 17 or 19 different components, and parks and recreation is a component of that.
And
it's much larger than that. So the general plan, it's required by state statute.
okay. And we can't use that to prove for grants.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lucas Stewart. I moved here about 10 years ago. I opened up a business here, and I have 4 kids. They are, let me remember, 16, 12, 7, and 4. And as we go through this process of this whole field dynamic, first of all, I do want to say thank you so much for every single one of you moving it forward. It actually truly melted my heart because I'm super passionate about our youth sports. I currently coach 2 Little League teams for my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old, as well as I coach the 8U travel ball for the Vipers. And this year has truly been just crazy. Teams fighting for fields, city going after, or the public, I should say, going after, this organization or this organization. And it's truly the fact that we just don't have what we need. Currently for Little League, we are using school fields. However, you can only use those school fields for so long because it gets dark. So one thing that, would benefit there is if we did have some sort of light, situation there. But it is difficult when you have to get to practice by 4:00. When kids are getting out of school by 2:30 and not getting home and everything that. And when you take these young ones, they're getting pushed to some of them because of the field usage, and where parents can even get their kids to practice. They're practicing at 8:00 at night, 9:00, up to 9:00 at night. For me, I mean, my kids need as much sleep as possible. And that's just Little League. That's right now. I mean, that's not what we talked about, the soccer in the fall. I mean, getting soccer practices in the fall, it was crazy too. I mean, we didn't have the fields. Teams were practicing at all the other schools, at Nautilus, at Smoke Tree and all these other places. And teams are competing there, minimizing practice times, and so the field usage and what we can do. And I 100% agree. I've said that now for years, that Buena Vista, and that property needs to, be something that we need to look at. We need to truly invest in our youth system. I understand we get a lot of revenue from, tourism and everything on that. Granted, I make a lot of money when we are in the winter months and tourism with my business. However, I also want to focus on our local aspects of things too. And that's where I focus so much on the schools and being in the schools, with my, business itself. And that's where, for me, you say, what do we need for fields, right? What do we have? Okay. So currently we have Sarah Park that has 4 fields. One's being utilized for men's softball. The other 3 are being utilized for Little League currently. Then you have Dick Stamp that's being utilized as, for Little League. Then you take Rotary that's being utilized for softball. You mentioned about the pool and being, hey, this is more in the sports than in the pool. Currently, between Little League and rec softball, there's probably over 1,000 kids. That's Little League and rec softball. That doesn't include the Vipers program that those kids didn't even play Little League. There's another 100 kids. I mean, and right now with soccer with the spring, I mean, there's 400, 500 kids, you know? I mean, we're talking probably roughly between a sports program right now, between soccer and Little League and softball and what flag football was going on and all that. We're talking probably 15 to 2,000 kids. And I feel like truly we need, as a community, as city council members, coaches, I mean, trying to balance it all as a coach, I mean, it's a rough one. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because I love sitting out there and I love coaching those kids. And I do feel like this is the main priority of something for our community. So I appreciate you guys all taking it into account. I appreciate you taking those letters and everything that were sent to you. And thank you so much for moving it up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stewart. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. It came up in those 28 pages from parents and users, and then Mr. Knutson mentioned it about tourism and kind of the impact in tourism. So, and I've seen it on a lot of social media forums as well. So when we talk about tourism being the lifeblood of our economy, what that means is that we're importing dollars in. So all of those tourists are paying the 2% sales tax when they buy goods or services throughout our community. And then we use that money in the general fund to pay for the services that we as residents enjoy. So in our Certified Tourism Ambassador program, it is said that for tourism, for us to enjoy the same services we do today, so same police, fire, parks, roads, all of those things, that we are all individually paying $1,200 less in taxes that we would have to otherwise pay to make up for the part of tourism. So when we talk about tourism, not one thing here in today's budget was an investment in tourism. I mean, you could make an argument that the bathrooms in the channel are for tourists, but I see walkers down there by the hundreds every single day wishing they did not have to use a porta potty. And so I mean, all of the investments in my position on anything that we do as the city is that what's right for our citizens and what's right for our community. If the byproduct is it helps tourism, great. But it's what is it for us? So I just wanted to clarify that some of the comments that we get, point well taken, but was almost as if we were investing in tourism versus what we're saying is we're taking the money that is imported here from tourists to then pay for the goods and services for all of our citizens. So I just wanted to clarify that point on the record of what that means. So that concludes the formal part of our meeting. Is there any final questions?
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Can we, with the Buena Vista, can somebody explain exactly, the school district owns that Buena Vista property, correct? And we're in discussions about purchasing it or leasing it, or can you just tell me what that looks like? And I know some of it, and I've talked to some people on the square too that said that they have not had those conversations. So I just wanted to be very transparent and clear if we're looking at that and we're making plans for it, what that actually looks like.
Mayor, Councilmember Lynn, absolutely. So right now we are in contract negotiations with the school district on that possibility, right? So we have just sent over, staff has just sent over the preliminary ask, the draft agreement to the school district less than maybe a month ago. We've had some ongoing conversations for myself, my counterpart at the school district is Dr. Stone. So I've been talking to Dr. Stone about this and in terms of the asks for well over a year, probably going on 2 years, as knowing that the deadline for the IGA, it expires on June 30th. So we need the council and the school district to agree to terms on a new IGA that's going to be effective July 1st. The concept, and the concept there is that we would like to lease a portion of that property from the school district. We love that site because of its proximity, but we also love that site because it's flat. Sarah Park, we were spending millions upon millions of that in just in grading and earthwork. We can spend a fraction of that at Buena Vista. So that's why it's attractive in terms of our conversations. We don't want to spend more money on fields and less money on moving dirt, and we can do that at Buena Vista. The concept is, again, we provide the school district with free water and sewer every single year. That's valued at $500,000. Can we lease some acreage over at Buena Vista and call it pretty close to? I mean, there's other conversations. So maybe a portion of that $500,000 we're paying for could serve as payment for a lease agreement for some land over Buena Vista. So we're also talking about a few other things, but that's the concept. There's two columns. So this is what the city gives to the school district for the IGA. I just need the other column to be of equal value, that what the city is getting from the school district. It doesn't have to be payment or cash or whatever else too, but they have some assets that I think that we can capitalize on and provide some services to the youth and to the adults in our community. Based and that's one of the two. But yeah, no, we're in contract negotiations. The draft is sitting with the staff. They just got it. They're just looking at it. They're having conversations. They're pulling together information, and then the school district team will then engage the board members in totality and have those conversations with them. They'll get together and tell us how great the draft is we provided, or possibly it makes some counterpoints to it as well too. So that's where we're sitting with all that. So.
Mr. Mayor, is this also similar to the intergovernment agreement that we have at the property where the old ASU was? That property with the school district, would that be the same type of intergovernment agreement?
So that's the same agreement. So we have an IGA with the school district that it contains a wealth of different topics within there. We do after school programs. We do summer camps. So the IGA says that we can utilize their facilities, to bring our staff and our team in and to provide after school programs and summer camps. The ball fields over at the old ASU campus. We have some separate ball field agreements for those, but we're trying to clean all that up and bring those agreements into one large agreement. So essentially this IGA that I'm talking about is much more so than just Buena Vista, but I'm excited about that possibility. But basically it's an agreement between the city and the school district for all the things that we provide in terms of training, SROs, water, sewer, facility space, ball field space, our ability to partner with the school district to best serve our community.
The agreement that you're talking about, Mr. Knutson, will come before the city council for approval and come before the governing board of the Lake Havasu Unified School District. Are there any final comments before we wrap up?
One final, while you're
Councilmember Campbell.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. While we're talking about the IGA and we're talking about expenditure limits and caps, my big concern, and we talked about it the other day, is our after school programs, our summer camp programs with the schools. I think Ms. Carlton was telling us at one time we had 5 different schools with a couple hundred kids in each school, and we're down to 2 schools right now doing 300 apiece. And I've said that from day one. That is, if we care about our community, these are kids that are sitting at home. You're saying over here, we've got active parents that have almost 1,500 kids in sports, and we're only accommodating maybe 300 during the summertime. Those keep that conversation going, because I don't know about you guys up here, but I really think we can do a whole lot better job expanding our resources. But again, here we go. More money. But I believe our after school programs are vital to this community. And they're extremely important in the summer schools. Not everybody we have too many kids sitting at home, and then it becomes a public safety issue. It's very dangerous. So let's continue as we're up here talking about the budget as we move forward, how we can expand upon, how can we do that better as well if we're talking about our local community. Thank you much.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. And that discussion we can have during the operating discussion as well. Those are operating programs, so that's a great thing. Before closing, I just want to make a point that we did get a lot of emails from residents. So although 9 o'clock is a bit difficult for citizens to engage in this process, we do appreciate all the citizens engaging and emailing us. Thank you, Ms. Williams, for preparing it and making sure we had them with us today as well. And the moms group, over 1,000 different families were involved in reaching out. So thank you so much. That's all so important. To our team, thank you for all of the work that you've done so far. And we look forward to continuing the conversation in May as we work our way through budget adoption. So we are adjourned. Be kind, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.